Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fantasy Hockey Report, our debut episode number 2. I am your host Steve, along with my partner here, Jeff.
That's right, and now it is time to talk about the guys who will be getting lumps of coal, no doubt, in their stockings. Of course, the underachievers of the season so far.
Now, these are guys that we thought were going to be producers during the season, but have just not shown up at all. And been big disappointments for their clubs as well as their fantasy owners.
Yeah, big time. So let's take a look at our top 5 of underachieving forwards right now. Well, players in general, really. Number 1, I would say, would be Mr. Yager from the New York Rangers.
Jaromir Jagr, what can you say about this guy? New York went out in the offseason. They picked up guys like Drury and Gomez, who were supposed to come in and turn this team into an offensive powerhouse. Just hasn't been the case. This is a team that has struggled to score goals all season long. And Jagr just, he hasn't seemed like he's happy playing. He looks like the grumpy Jagr that we saw a few years ago. Just doesn't look like he cares anymore. And I don't know if this has anything to do with maybe New York going to a more North American style game with the likes of Drury and Gomez, as opposed to what Jagr was used to, a more European flow when he was playing with Nylander the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I think that with the Nylander moving over to Washington and bringing in new guys like Drury and Gomez, that's definitely thrown off Jagr's game a bit. And in turn, he has not responded to criticisms of his style of play this season. And overall, he's just not having a very productive season, and the fact that he's getting older too is playing a factor in this as well.
He's just a guy we thought was going to produce a lot more under this team. The next guy is a guy that 2 years ago, he scored 60 goals in the NHL, won the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy for the most goals in the league, and he's just disappeared completely. Of course, we're talking about Jonathan Cheechoo. What can you say about this guy? What's happened to him?
Yeah, what is going on here? You get a guy who scores that many goals, and then all of a sudden he's off the radar this season. He's barely got, I think, 4 goals right now. He's having some injury troubles recently.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. In fact, in general, that whole Sharks team, aside from Joe Thornton, is really having some troubles.
Yeah, consistency's been a big problem with that team. Outside of Joe Thornton, it's just been really, really interesting in San Jose this year. You're looking at a team that has been struggling at home all season long, but on the road they're dominant. It just doesn't make sense. I guess home sweet home isn't the case for San Jose lately.
No, not at all. They're just having some big time troubles, that's for sure. Speaking of big time troubles, let's take a look at Mr. Vanek, who just after signing that big contract with Buffalo over the offseason, not producing the numbers they wanted right now.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy who was thrown an offer sheet as a restricted free agent by Kevin Lowe and the Edmonton Oilers in the summer for an outrageous amount of money for a 23-year-old kid who had just been in his second season, had a breakout year. And now we're talking about a guy that's got this immense pressure on his shoulders. He's the face of Buffalo now with the departures of Briere and Drury in the summer. And this is just a guy that's got so much pressure on his shoulders with that big, huge paycheck that he got in the summertime. And he just hasn't been able to find his game so far this year.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys were put under a lot of pressure on that Buffalo squad. Guys like Vanek and Pominville and Stafford and Tim Connolly, of course, to step up and lead this team, and they just haven't been there. And Vanek's the main guy, obviously, with the amount of money he's making. Much similar cases, Brian McCabe in Toronto with the amount of money he's making and just not producing the results lately that they want. That's what's happening with Vanek on the forward position in Buffalo, and it's unfortunate, but there is still a slim chance he could turn around with the rest of the season.
It's just a difficult situation for him. It's a lot of money to be thrown at somebody who's that young, and it's a tough thing to deal with sometimes. So another guy that we're looking at here would be Jordan Staal. What's happened with Jordan Staal? We're talking about a guy who last year had 30 goals. He wasn't playing much time, but was able to produce when he was on the ice. He would get penalty killing time and had a bunch of shorthanded goals last season. This year he just hasn't been able to find his game.
Yeah, Jordan Staal just fallen off the map. He's got Up to date right now, he's got 3 goals this season, which is basically a goal a month, and that is just not the results Pittsburgh was looking in his sophomore year.
Yeah.
Whereas Malkin is definitely having a great sophomore season. Stahl, I would say, is definitely hit the sophomore slump.
Yeah, you want to talk about sophomore slumps? Look at Jordan Stahl. Definitely. Last guy that we want to talk about on this list is Shea Weber. Unfortunately for Weber, at the first game of the season, he suffered that knee injury that really set him back. And since he's been back, it just looks like he hasn't been able to get comfortable and regain that form that he was at last season. He's just been struggling to put up those offensive numbers that he had last year.
Yeah, definitely. I think that injury definitely took a lot out of Weber's season. It took away any momentum he would have had going into the season. And coming back from an injury, he's just not played very well at all. And unfortunately, it's just an unfortunate circumstance to be injured that early in the season and have to recover from that. And I think it's still slightly a bit of a nagging injury too, with what happened. So it should be interesting to see if he can turn his season around.
Now, these are all guys that we don't have to explain to you, the extremely talented players, all 5 of these guys. So there's a chance that these guys can turn it around. And for players like Jordan Stahl and Shea Weber and Vanek and Chichu, guys that are young, they still got a chance to be able to produce later on. So those of you in those keeper leagues, I know maybe some of you are trying to like pulling out your hair at these guys, wondering what the heck's going on. But hang in there. Maybe they'll turn it up. But as of right now, it's just a really, really tough situation. And for those of you that are in pools that the players all get thrown back into the draft at the end of the season, you might want to look at dropping some of those guys and see if you can find some other guys that are coming up. And in our next episode, we're going to talk about maybe some free agent pickups that you could be looking at in your pool that might still be available. So maybe those are guys that you're going to want to look at instead.
Yeah, definitely. So that'll do it for the bad here. And next episode, we'll be taking a look, as Steve said, of some free agents as well as surprise guys. So stay tuned, and we will see you later.
And as always, good luck in your fantasy pools. Take care, guys.